For decades, the paramount considerations were simple: initial cost, mechanical reliability scores, and the reputation of the manufacturer. These metrics are rapidly becoming secondary to a factor often overlooked until it becomes a catastrophic problem: the health, viability, and sheer geographic density of the dealer network supporting the vehicle. Forget horsepower figures and infotainment features for a moment. In the rapidly evolving landscape of automotive ownership, the biggest financial mistake an educated consumer can make in the next 2 years might not involve the engine under the hood, but the brick-and-mortar building responsible for servicing it. The conventional wisdom that robust dealership coverage guarantees peace of mind and accessible repairs is currently fracturing under immense economic pressure. We are looking specifically toward the horizon of 2026. It represents the moment where the full force of rapid technological mandates, primarily centered around electrification and sophisticated software integration, collides directly with a legacy franchise sales model that is financially unprepared for the required transformation. By 2026, several major legacy brands that many consumers currently trust and rely upon, will have dealership networks so strained, fractured, or financially distressed that owning their vehicles will transition from a mere inconvenience into a genuine and often extremely expensive long-term liability. The traditional dealer model is being squeezed viciously from two opposing sides, creating what analysts refer to as the service atrophy dilemma. The first pressure point is the capital investment required to transition to servicing complex electric vehicles. This is not simply a matter of purchasing a new lift. It involves astronomical expenditures for specialized high-voltage battery repair bays, mandatory diagnostic tools, often proprietary to the manufacturer, and stringent, often non-transferable, high-voltage training and certification for technicians. These requirements can easily run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars per facility, an investment many marginal dealers cannot justify, especially those located in smaller or tertiary markets.
The earliest we can get you in is
the second pressure point is the rising dominance and increasing market acceptance of direct-to-consumer models, exemplified by companies like Tesla, Rivian, and Lucid. The conflict, therefore, lies squarely in the middle ground: the OEM brands that are attempting a transition but failing to adequately support or subsidize their existing franchise partners. This indecisiveness is creating a geographic customer service desert. When a financially struggling dealer closes its doors, the nearest authorized repair shop might jump from a convenient 10 miles away to an unacceptable 50 or even 80 miles. Routine maintenance becomes a half-day excursion, and perhaps most critically, the vehicle's resale value, that silent but decisive arbiter of long-term ownership cost, begins to tank precisely because prospective secondary market buyers anticipate the difficulty, the time delay, and the sheer expense of future servicing. We have identified 7 specific car brands that, based on rigorous analysis of current dealer financial health reports, future service strategy projections, anticipated capital expenditure requirements mandated by the OEM, and their specific geographic dealer coverage weaknesses, are on an unavoidable collision course with serious infrastructure crises by the middle of this decade. It must be stated clearly: these brands are not failing primarily because of poor engineering or inherent unreliability of the physical product. They are failing because of a fundamental and costly commitment shortfall to their supporting infrastructure. To understand how we reached this list, it is essential to explore the archetypes of dealer failure that are emerging. Let us first examine the luxury limbo. This category applies overwhelmingly to imported brands, particularly those from Europe, that traditionally relied on low sales volume combined with exceptionally high profit margins per unit. Their dealer networks were necessarily smaller and geographically dispersed, allowing a modest number of units to keep the operation solvent. However, when the corporate parent company suddenly shifts its strategic focus, demands massive, expensive bespoke EV training for a vehicle platform that might only account for 5% of their current sales volume, the return on investment for the dealer instantly collapses. These dealers are forced to hemorrhage capital or face closure, leading to vast voids in service coverage across secondary states and rural areas.
This is taking forever.
A specific brand falling into this luxury limbo category often exhibits a geographical vulnerability tied to parts distribution complexity. Shifting focus entirely, let us analyze the opposite end of the spectrum, the volume vacuum. This designation applies to high-volume, often mainstream Asian or domestic brands that have historically oversaturated their primary markets with a dense concentration of competing franchise dealerships, sometimes resulting in 3 or 4 different dealers representing the same brand within a single 20-mile radius of a major metropolitan area. For years, this worked because booming sales volume kept everyone profitable. Now, as new car sales either stagnate or market share declines marginally, the sheer density of competing dealers cannibalizes the remaining available service revenue pool. When one dealer fails, the remaining local dealers may inherit the warranty work, but often without sufficient capacity or the willingness to invest in expanding their footprint, leading to consumer backlogs and frustrated owners. If you are currently contemplating a purchase requiring a 5-year loan commitment, an immediate and sobering thought must override the excitement of the new car smell. The dealership you are buying from today might simply not exist for the entirety of the 3rd year of your ownership. The price you pay for the car is merely the admission ticket. The cost of maintaining the critical service relationship is the recurring necessary subscription, and for these 7 companies, that subscription model is poised to default dramatically. We now transition to the first 2 examples of brands already demonstrating severe systemic weaknesses in their franchise infrastructure, necessitating avoidance for prospective buyers aiming for reliability in 2026. The first brand, an exemplar of the luxury limbo dilemma, suffers precisely because of its commitment to maintaining the illusion of exclusivity through highly specialized, low-volume dealers. This European brand is currently mandating a $350,000 upgrade suite for every single franchise to handle their new plug-in hybrid and full EV platforms. The result is a predictable, cascading failure. These dealers are choosing to sell off their franchises or simply close, creating massive, unserviced geographical holes. For an owner of this particular brand, residing just 90 miles inland from a major city, a simple diagnostic or routine warranty procedure now requires planning an overnight stay, fundamentally redefining the convenience factor of owning a high-end vehicle. The second brand, which falls squarely into the volume vacuum category, is a high-volume Asian marque, known for reliability in the past, but facing dramatically declining market share due to outdated product design and overly aggressive inventory projections from 2021 and 2022. The internal brand strategy demanded maximum market penetration, leading to an overabundance of dealerships. Now, with profitability plummeting due to competitive pricing and reduced warranty reimbursement rates from the OEM, a measure taken by the manufacturer to offset their own financial struggles, the pressure is crushing the smaller, underperforming dealers. Unlike the luxury limbo, where specialized parts are the problem, here the issue is a sudden lack of authorized bays, as 4 competing dealerships in one large city consolidate into 2, leaving thousands of customers suddenly fighting for access to limited service slots. The failure here is insidious. The brand is reliable, but the ability to access that reliability is being choked by poor corporate infrastructure planning. The danger is unambiguous. Buying a vehicle from one of these 7 identified brands is akin to purchasing a high-quality product whose support system is inherently and predictably unreliable, regardless of the quality of the product itself. Service infrastructure is rapidly emerging as the single most critical, yet most underrated metric for long-term ownership viability and financial security. In the subsequent and concluding segment, we will reveal the remaining 5 brands, which include domestic giants facing massive EV transition costs and several unexpected crossover failures, providing detailed, actionable insights into how you, the consumer, can identify these at-risk dealer networks before signing any paperwork and committing to years of unforeseen servicing hassles. The inevitable convergence of disruptive technologies and archaic retail structures demands immediate attention. We left off analyzing the precarious position of several automakers, those caught squarely in the crosshairs of necessary operational overhaul and stubborn legacy adherence. The immediate consequence of this misalignment, the one that must be grappled with now, is the sheer cost of the transition. It is not just the capital expenditure required to install high-speed chargers or specialized EV service lifts. By 2026, the brands that have done the least to vertically integrate their service diagnostics and inventory management will find themselves trapped in a vicious cycle of consumer dissatisfaction and massive warranty liability. This is the inflection point where convenience ceases to be a luxury and becomes a non-negotiable expectation. Moving deeper into the list, we encounter brands defined by their historical market saturation. Its vulnerability stems not from outright technological neglect, but from the sheer scale of its dealership footprint. This brand has thousands of rooftops across North America, many of them operating under franchise agreements drafted decades ago, promising geographical exclusivity and protection from direct manufacturer competition. These agreements are ironclad, often preventing the OEM from implementing streamlined, direct-to-consumer digital purchasing models or centralized inventory pools. When every dealership is incentivized to hoard inventory and maximize local markup, the consumer experience becomes fragmented, opaque, and highly inefficient, a fatal flaw in a market rapidly moving towards seamless digital transactions. This sprawling infrastructure represents billions in amortized debt that the dealers themselves are vehemently unwilling to sacrifice for the sake of efficiency. When this manufacturer attempts to push the necessary upgrades, new tools, certified EV technicians, specialized high-voltage storage areas, they meet resistance. The resulting compromise is often a half measure. One certified tech per location, generic charging installed without robust energy management systems, leading inevitably to service backlogs and dangerously slow repair times as the EV fleet grows. The 6th brand exhibits a slightly different, though equally fatal, weakness: an over-reliance on aggressive, interest rate subsidized volume sales. This brand has traditionally moved metal by using its dealership network as a primary financial tool, pushing consumers into highly complex loan structures, often tied to captive financing arms. However, as the industry tightens inventory and shifts focus to higher margin, fewer unit sales, the inevitable outcome of the EV production shift, this brand's network lacks the institutional resilience to pivot. Their dealers are conditioned for high transaction volume, not specialized consultative sales of high-technology products. By 2026, when used car values stabilize and incentives dry up due to production constraints, the high-volume dealers in this network will face a liquidity crisis, unable to service the remaining debt on their immense, increasingly empty showrooms. This instability translates directly to unpredictable service quality and potential sudden closures, leaving consumers with few options for warranty work. This leads us to the pivotal element of this analysis: the open loop that must now be closed. The catastrophic failure point of the software-defined vehicle, SDV, servicing model. Diagnosis is often observational and physical. The SDV, however, requires a completely different approach. Repairs frequently involve complex module replacement, software flashing, and highly specific calibration procedures. The conflict arises because the traditional franchise model dictates that the dealer retains control over the physical service interaction, often viewing the manufacturer's desire for direct diagnostic access as an infringement on their territorial imperative. The seventh brand, the one positioned most precariously for the 2026 cliff, is a historical powerhouse that has actively fought against any standardization or centralization of its service network. This brand's dealer association is one of the most politically powerful, successfully lobbying in numerous state houses to prevent or severely restrict the OEM's ability to sell directly or mandate unified service protocols. This resistance is the defining risk. By 2026, a software glitch in a vehicle from this brand might require a multi-day diagnostic process because the dealer is still operating on a localized proprietary system disconnected from the real-time engineering feedback loop necessary for rapid software fixes. The technicians, incentivized by hourly or flat-rate mechanical work, lack the motivation and often the training to perform complex software troubleshooting that yields lower immediate labor margins. The result is a service backlog measured not in days, but in weeks or months, as vehicles become sophisticated paperweights awaiting proprietary parts, and the one technician who barely passed the required certification. This is the great revelation, the undeniable climax of the analysis. Avoiding these 7 brands in 2026 is not about criticizing the quality of their current sheet metal. It is a cold, hard calculation about the viability of their institutional support structure. The final, most vulnerable brand is the one whose internal legal and political battles over franchise protection have superseded the necessity of logistical modernization. They have effectively traded long-term consumer trust for short-term dealer appeasement. The consumer payoff, the final conclusion of this extended cautionary deep dive, is clear and financially devastating. Depreciation. Cars from brands with failing or fractured service networks depreciate faster and more severely. The market will harshly penalize vehicles requiring specialized dealer interaction for software fixes, preferring those where diagnosis is streamlined, standardized, and potentially decoupled from the traditional franchise ecosystem. The initial purchase price advantage these vulnerable brands might offer now will be completely erased by the rapid erosion of residual value when the service infrastructure collapses under the weight of modern vehicle complexity. This is not conjecture. It is the financial inevitability of technological incompatibility meeting inflexible legal frameworks. The traditional dealership model, with its protected territories and mandated independence, acts as a severe impedance to the speed and vertical control required by electrified, software-centric vehicle platforms. The 7 brands identified, particularly those whose dealer networks actively fight modernization mandates, are positioning themselves for a period of extreme institutional chaos starting in 2026. Therefore, the specific action required today, before committing to a major vehicle purchase from any established volume brand, must be rooted in diligence concerning future serviceability. Research the state of the OEM-dealer relationship, paying close attention to recent legal challenges regarding direct sales or centralized service mandates. If the relationship is characterized by constant litigation and public disputes over control, recognize that you are buying into a structure poised for failure. Look for signs of centralized diagnostic hubs and mandated, non-negotiable service standards across the entire dealer network, not just voluntary compliance. The absence of this foresight is the clearest signal to avoid that brand in the rapidly approaching future.